one of the other common questions we get from others, particularly outside of the state of Florida, is when it comes to flood insurance. And even when it comes to working with investors, a lot of times they want to figure out all of their costs, and they want to figure out, hey, does investing in Southwest Florida make sense? And then it gets to the point where it's very property specific as to which plot of land or which property requires flood insurance, which one doesn't. Can you talk more about that?
Well, you've got basic flood codes. Flood zone X, you don't have to have flood insurance. Like when we're looking for lots for builders, they overwhelmingly want flood zone X. Well, it makes sense. There's a flood zone AE, which I had a house, I wasn't even on the water, but I had a house in North Fort Myers on a little over an acre that we were AE, and I think my flood insurance was like $400 a year. It wasn't the end of the world. I live on the water now, and it's not that cheap. No. So, I'm on a canal, 6 houses off the river, but, at some point you got to live a little bit too. Yep. So, and the most important thing with flood insurance, if you're in a flood zone, by codes, anything 85 and older is going to have a higher flood insurance premium because of the elevation at the house. Every time we have a code change, we kind of require the houses to be a little higher. It's almost like the fill dirt guys have a lot of input into our building, but they're going to come out and they're going to do what's called an elevation certificate. Your surveyor will. Yep. And here's the thing: if you don't have an elevation certificate, your flood quote will be off the highest potential it can be, the highest premium it can be. That's why that elevation certificate is so critical. It's almost, if you're buying a house, particularly 90 and older, but particularly 85 and older, part of your due diligence is probably go get an elevation certificate. Right. It's going to dictate a lot of what you do, which this is one of the reasons why you see so many teardowns in the yacht club area.
Absolutely.
Because, they're awesome lots, it's great water access, it's an awesome place. But you also have, some of these things were built in the 70s, and the elevation certificate makes the flood insurance problematic.
Yeah, and even I'm a little bit north on Pelican Boulevard, and I'm not technically on a flood zone, but everything around me has mandatory flood insurance, and it's pretty cheap to get, and you should get it anyway. Really, all of Florida is subject to flooding. Right? You're not gonna not have risk. But for me, the way I look at it is I spend about $500 a year in flood insurance, and probably in the next 10 years, I will use it at least once. And so that one time I do use it makes up for all the other times.
Yeah, it's really, again, you need to know what you're doing. And if you're going to, like, I have an older home in a flood area, but I got a really awesome deal, so I'm okay with it.
Right.
Yeah. Plus, I love the house. We really do. Our joke, we tolerate our house. We love our backyard. So, but me and my wife are at the point in life where we're in the backyard, in the pool, going boating. We have a guest house kind of off the pool. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. But, we knew what we were getting into. What you don't want to do is buy something and not know what you're getting into. So if you're working with a real estate agent, one of the first things your agent should be asking you is a flood insurance. And particularly if you're getting a mortgage, it's part of your payment. Yep. So it can go up, and they can change flood maps. There was a recent, they call them the firm maps, the flood maps. There was a recent change in downtown Fort Myers where a couple of commercial buildings, they basically moved it over a block. Yeah. And it brought some commercial buildings into it that previously didn't require flood insurance. Right. And ironically enough, it's a very historic building, was under contract to sell. And in the process of that contract, it being in a flood zone killed the deal. Yeah. So you really, and that's another thing too, you want to kind of keep up with if they're going to change the flood maps, because it's the federal government that puts these maps out. They do long-term studies and they put these maps out. So because you're not in a flood zone today, doesn't mean you can't be tomorrow. So it's just something to factor in. But it's really simple, particularly if you're working with a real estate agent. We click a button in the MLS, Real List comes up, it's right there. It's very easy to find.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's really easy for an experienced real estate agent to figure out whether or not you are in a flood zone. And you can even reach out to an insurance broker and figure out what the costs are for getting flood insurance, hurricane insurance, all the other insurances for a property before you close on that property. So to your point, the key is to get the information, work with someone who will get that information for you, compile it, and run the numbers and see whether or not that still makes sense. There is a price to pay for living in paradise, and that can be one of them.